Welcome back, sisters, to the Coming Home to You Sparkcast, this sanctuary for soul-led women, healers, mamas, visionaries, and leaders ready to rise fully in their light. Here is where we remember that what it means to come home to ourselves. And it's beyond the roles, beyond the noise and expectations, because coming home to you is definitely not a destination. It's a devotion. And this is a space where progress matters more than perfection. And every episode is that invitation, a step on that journey, a breath of remembrance, and a chance to really truly reconnect with yourself and embrace the unique path that is unfolding before you. And now, as we always do, let's dive into our sacred breath, our one breath, one heart ritual. It's a moment that we can align, unify as one, and return to ourselves. So together, let's breathe as one. So wherever you are, just settle in your seat, feel your shoulders drop. Put your hand in your heart center and the other in your womb. Take one deep, slow breath in your nose, holding it at the top for 4 counts. And then when you release with pursed lips, forcing out anything that is weighing you down, holding you back, heavy on your heart, release that. Now imagine a white thread, golden weaves woven between it. Bring that into your heart center, breathe it in, holding it here, allowing it to expand. Drop in a moment that you're grateful for. Let that sit and expand within your heart. And as you breathe out slowly with 8 counts, imagine that gratitude rippling outward to every other sister and mama who can use a little extra sister love. Now, think of another moment to be grateful for and stack it on top of that one. And as you breathe it in, allow it to glow in you. And now smile with your whole being, smile with your face. It signals to your mind that you're safe and that you're okay. And now as you release the breath, set an intention for how you want to be received, how you want to show up, be held in this space. And in one breath, we may now begin. Thank you. So today I have the extreme honor to welcome Dr. Wendi McKenna, a doctor of pediatric physical therapy, founder of Move, Play, Grow, co-founder of Elevated Athlete Physical Therapy and Performance, and a transformational leadership trainer, my personal mentor, and mindset performance coach. Wendi has devoted more than 2 decades to helping families create extraordinary lives, rooted in love, joy, peace, and abundance. Married for 23 years to her best friend Neil, and raising 3 children, she embodies leadership in its most sacred form, in the home, in parenting, and in partnership of marriage. She truly stands for families, for truth, and for the courage it takes to live aligned with values and vision. So please help me welcome Wendi McKenna to my beautiful Sparkcast today.
Hi, Margarita. It's so wonderful to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to spend some time with you this morning.
Yes. Yes. Earlier we were just talking about releasing and on the new moon. And so I think it's so important that we have conversations like this just to remind us that we're not alone strictly and that there's a lot of us and each other. And if we can just lean in and do the work, we could have magical lives, right?
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
Yes. So Wendy, you've built your life around leadership, love, and family. But before the titles and the roles, who was Wendy at the core? that little girl, the dreamer, and the woman that she knew she was meant to guide others? What rooted you in that?
Um, it's so fun. I'm the oldest of three girls, and my parents are still with us and still together. They just had their 50th anniversary a couple years ago. And for me, at the core of me, I loved horses. I loved horses. We did one of those I don't know, pony rides when I was 2 years old at a fair, and they put me on a pony when I was two, and it was like I became one with this soul underneath me. And from that day forward, everything was horsey. Everything. I was just one of those horse girls. Can't the horse out of the girl. And I begged and begged and begged for lessons and wanting to do it. And I didn't have dolls. I had Breyer's horses. I didn't have Barbie houses. I had stables in my room. I mean, it was a farm playhouse in my space, and I just had such a commune and community with animals, especially horses. And finally, when I was 7, 8 years old, my parents said, okay, fine. Well, you can have a lesson. And long story short, by the time I graduated from high school, I was an international show jumper champion and really dedicated my life to to crafting my abilities, my connection with a being that is talking to me all the time, but without words. So really honing my skills of being able to hear and listen without having a common language and really meeting that horse where it is and at the same time standing for what it meant to be an equestrian because people are like, oh, you don't do any work, you're just sitting on the horse does all the work, it's not a sport. So hearing all this stuff growing up, and it's like I have dedicated my life to this thing that everyone is dismissing.
Mm,
And everyone has not everyone, but most people have some sort of story around, you know, what it means to be able to even ride a horse. Like, what kind of socioeconomic status can you be? Is it really accessible for everyone? And, not to say bad words, but I was the rich bitch snob, and nobody ever gave me the option to be anything but that. And over and over and over again growing up, when I finally would get to know people, they're like, oh, you are not a bitch. I'm like, I know. You are not mean. You are like love. And it's so fascinating because I asked people for feedback. I wanted genuine feedback because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing to come across as bitchy and distant and aloof and whatever it is story that you're making up about me. But 100% of the time when people get to know me, they're like, oh my God, you're actually really nice. I know. But nobody
great.
ever gave me feedback. Nobody would ever give me the honest feedback, and I wanted it. Horses give honest feedback.
Mm,
Horses don't know how to lie. So for me, having feedback, listening to feedback, adopting who I am and who I get to be in order to create what I want has been ingrained in me from the get-go. And on a completely different note of that, I also grew up in a very political household, very
mm,
one-sided political household. And so when I hear the discussions and not maybe I wouldn't even say arguments or debates because it's all one-sided, but when I hear the discussions like, oh yeah, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And so I was being, fed what they knew and what they believe, which there's nothing wrong with that. And yet, I noticed myself on presidential election years when you would watch the map come up, blue states, red states, blue states, red states, that I'm sitting there looking at that map, just intuitively thinking, how is half the country wrong?
mm.
Because in politics, if you win 56 to 44, it's a landslide and a mandate. I'm like, really? Is it though? That's kind of 50-50. It's kind of 50-50. So, right? And so I'm like, I don't get it. How is half the country wrong? Like I can see
Ah,
how maybe 5 to 10% of the country could be crazy off their rocket or
yeah, very
maybe
interesting.
wrong, but 50%? And so I questioned that without really having the knowledge or the dialogue until I got a little bit older and was exposed to other opinions and views. But at the end of the day, again, looking back at listening to the listening that I learned from the horses, accepting feedback from people about how, not just accepting, but wanting it and wanting honesty. I am honest and to the core because I know how transformational it is with everyone that I'm working with. And yeah, sometimes the truth hurts. And I have gotten better at delivering the truth so that people can hear it
Yeah,
versus just, because the truth sometimes really does hurt. And so how can I deliver it in a way that they're going to be able to hear me? So I've honed those skills over time.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Give me an example of a sentence if you were to give me feedback on maybe a self-doubt nerd that I have or something.
Well, first of all, I would always ask permission.
Okay.
I would say, hey, Margarita, I'm noticing something about the way that you're showing up. Are you open to me having a conversation with you about how you're showing up?
What a beautiful invitation.
Yeah, and they'll either say yes or no. And then if they say yes, then I'll be like, if it's not a true yes, because sometimes people just say
Just
yes to
feel
me.
it, right? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like my niece doesn't know, like we're teaching her, but she doesn't know how to say yes or no. She says sure. But it's like if you ask her a question and she goes, sure, you're like, it's a yes. But if she goes, sure, you're like, really? I mean, can
Yeah.
you just say no? I mean, it's okay to say no, but she's a people pleaser in training. And I'm working with her to just gently say, it's okay to say no. And it's also really okay to say yes. Both things are possible because right now, whether it's yes or no, or whether it's a real hard yes or a real hard no, the answer is sure. It's just the way that she says it is different.
Hmm.
And she gets to stand in her power with a true yes or a true no.
And that's you also being honest and lovingly calling her forward and listening to the listening, right? That's the part of the listening to the listening because you energy doesn't lie. And if we are actually listening, we see even the bodies changing, like their body posture and everything starts to change. So I love that you're grounded in and you've had enough training. And I got to tell you, yes, it does work the way that you approach. And it's always been a beautiful invitation to be responsible for my part um, in my transformation. So, anyways, go ahead.
No, it's great, and really the other big part of it is that we must have an invitation for all of us to be able to laugh at ourselves.
Mm, I
We
love it.
can't we can take things seriously, but we can't take ourselves so seriously. We are on a journey of growth and we don't know it all. And my experience of having gone high up in the academics and having my doctoral degree, you learn more and more about less and less. And the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And so it's humbling. And I really wish that most people, when they have these higher degrees, would show up more humbly. Because yes, you might have information on something, but it is the piece of your pie is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so it's that much more important to be aware of how much you know on one subject, having gone deep, but also to come away and realize it's one little sliver of the big pie. And if we really want to be in the world where we can hear one another, see one another, listen to one another on a level that we're not going to not always be triggering each other when we don't agree. We must be willing to look at the whole picture. And I think that that's really what's missing in our civil discourse right now, especially when we're talking about things that we don't agree with other people, is that you know, is there a truth? Is there one truth? Like sometimes there is. Rocks are hard, water is wet. That's a truth. Now, some people might like water and some people might not. Some people might like the water warm and others like it cold. Like, you know, it's there's nuances with all of it, and that's what makes life so beautiful. It's that it's not black and white. It has the range of color and tonality, and it's not even just shades of gray. It's all the shades of color. And we've got to be willing to see that full spectrum of color to really get the full picture. And that's really what I believe at the core of me is dedicated to, is just seeing the whole picture while also being grounded in, like, I really know a lot about one color.
I love how you put that because that is easy to kind of digest. And as we start to become aware and doing these small tweaks, we start to learn that we need to overcome and reframe an old limiting belief, right? That's usually like the next thing because it's like, now what? So you've been married for over 2 decades and you've raised 3 children. Hold on, let me put ourselves here. Um, and walked the beautiful but very challenging path of partnership and parenting. Can you share a moment where things felt difficult when love was tested and what it took for you to really rise and reframe and lead with love anyway?
Yeah, my husband and I was probably about 12 years ago that he's my guy. Let me be clear. I've, I'm committed to him. He's an incredible human being and he is my guy, and I'm committed to us working. And we were in a space and a place where the same challenge kept coming up. And we were on a hike in the mountains, and I was honest with him about my challenge with this one problem coming up again. And I feel like I don't know which way to go. I don't know how to fix it. We put band-aids on it. It feels better for a while, but within 6 months, it comes back up again. So we haven't broken through the challenge. Like, I don't mind, and I absolutely expect challenges to occur in a marriage. I just want them to be next level challenges, not the same one over and over
Mm.
and over and over and over again, like I'm on a hamster wheel. So I was getting frustrated and irritated that it was the same one over and over again. And I realized that I don't have the skills for this. And so, what was so beautiful about that exchange is he heard me, and we did it in a way that was very non-confrontational because we were walking single file on a single track. And so he didn't feel like I was attacking him. We were both walking forward. I was behind him, sometimes in front of him. We were having discussion back and forth. I allowed for, because hikes do allow for time to reflect and not talk and allow questions to be digested and processed before we answer. And so, we allowed that time to occur. And then I remember the one thing he said back to me was just like, don't give up on me.
Mm.
And I gave him a hug. I'm like, I'm not going to give up on you. We're good. And and we get to go to the next level. And so um, I decided that I felt like I needed more skills. And so I found a marriage counselor to go to, and he wouldn't come with me.
Mm.
And I said, I would love for you to come. And he said, no way. And I said, well, I'm going to go. So then I went, come home. And after that first visit, he said, what'd you talk about? I said, well, you, me, us, learning skills. He's like, well, tell me more. I said, you can come. I'm not going to rehash the whole hour. You can come next week. So this happened for 7 weeks. Every day when I got home, what'd you talk about? You, me, us, and learning skills. Why don't you come
Love
next?
it.
Why don't you come next week? So again, it's the invitation, not making him wrong for
Mm.
not
I love
going and continuing to give him the invitation, but also not feeding him what he was requesting, which was really what he wanted to know underneath it all is, are we going to be okay?
I
Have you
think,
given up on me?
yeah. And then you maintained your boundaries about that, which I think is powerful.
Yes. So he finally went and we had a powerful session. And then afterwards, what he said was, the reason why I couldn't go. And he wasn't, I don't think he could articulate it, even if he knew it in his body, but he couldn't articulate it in a way that it made sense to him, therefore it made sense to me. He just knew that he couldn't go. He couldn't go to therapy. But after that eighth time, he was able to articulate why he couldn't go the first seven. And what it was is that in his bones, down to the depths of his soul, he believed that it was the beginning of the end if he chose to go to a therapist.
Of
He
your
had,
relationship.
yes, that he had
Mm.
a story in his mind that once people go to therapy, it's the beginning of the end. It is the admission that I can't do this, I don't got this, and we're starting that final chapter. And I was like, oh, well, no wonder
Mm.
you didn't want to go. Like, that's horrifying. And that is absolutely not my experience of what this was. I really was learning more skills so that we could get to the next level, which we did. And and that started our journey and our process of getting coaching, of going through leadership, really getting deeper into what are my limiting beliefs, what are his limiting beliefs that we didn't know all of our blind spots, and then living that work. And so here we are 12 years afterwards and continuing to be honest with one another, even when it's hard, and just choosing to love one another every day.
Hmm. I love that. Choosing. Um, Power of choice is really, really powerful, and it's simple. It's simple when you think about it. It's hard sometimes to realize that are you choosing to be right? Like those 50% of people are crazy and what's wrong with them? Do they not see what I'm seeing? Or
Uh-huh.
are you choosing the connection and choosing the relationship and choosing to lead from love and compassion? And I loved that. Um, and life does happen. Like you said earlier, you have an expectation of problems arising because that is just how life is and then life goes. And that's why it's super important to have sacred tools, whether it's your faith or wellness and fitness or anything to like give you that inner resilience to keep going because it can get very loud out there. And you teach parents and teens to truly live authentically and aligned with their values. So when life feels heavy, right, and overwhelming, what are those sacred tools or practices that help bring you back to their center, not as a trainer or a coach, but just as a wife and a mom and a woman in the world?
Friends. I just say that
Yay!
friends, 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 community, people who are choosing to be on the same path as I am and can hold space for me to be at my worst and still hold me at my highest. Not judge me when I'm down in the dumps and doing things that behavior unbecoming, let's say, because we all have it. And for me, recognizing that I'm being that way faster and faster
Mm,
and going to that human or group of humans or whoever I needs to be able to have them hold the bucket for me just to listen what is occurring with inside of me so that I can let it out.
mm,
And sometimes it's my husband. Sometimes it's, I mean, I have so many beautiful faces that are just popping up in my mind right now of people who I can call on. And so I'm feeling incredibly grateful at how over the last 8 years, and really it has just been about 8 years, that I have learned to be a friend at another
mm.
level. I have chosen to show up for people without anything needed in return. And it is giving back to me umpteen times over. And so for me, that is one of my go-tos is the other humans in my life. We are social beings by nature, and my experience of myself is yes, I can pray, yes, I can journal, yes, I can meditate, yes, I can be out in nature and taking walks. And I do those things. But nothing shifts me faster than connecting with a friend and with another human.
That is so beautiful. I got like chills just even thinking about the importance of really surrounding yourself with that tribe. And I feel more and more people are actually craving it now. Like as a they see it as the need now to pull through. Um, there was something that you said um, that I was beautiful too, that you learn to be a better friend at a higher level. Um, is it, tell me more a little bit about that. I want go a little bit more on like what
Yeah.
that looks like and the importance of that.
So, as I mentioned, growing up, I communed well with animals, and my experience of humans and the way that I look back and see myself, I was not the gregarious type. I was introverted. I had a best friend and then a group of acquaintances.
Mm,
And when I was growing up, 0 to 8, I lived in one town in Miami, and Jenny was my girl, and she was just a month older than I, and my parents were, or our parents were best friends. We literally were in the same playpen together from the time we were born. When I was 8, we moved away, and it felt like my soul was being ripped out of my body. I had no control over it. I was confused. I did not want to say goodbye to my best friend. And we moved to Idaho, and my heart was broken open. I didn't know what it meant to protect myself at that point, so it remained open. And I found another best friend almost immediately. So Barrett became my human, and she and I were like this. And, you know, just together from the get-go, even though she had her whole group of friends that she knew from the time she was a baby, because that's where she lived her whole life. We just had this coming together that was so beautiful. And so I found my next level of Jenny. And then we moved again. And once again, my heart was ripped open. My soul felt like it was being ripped. Like, why am I leaving my best friend again? And we moved to California. We moved to San Diego, which is where I grew up from that point forward. At that point in my journey of a child, I was going into the 5th grade. It is a very integral time of we start to really care about how others think of us. And
mhm,
I'd had these two really hard experiences. So I caged my heart.
mm,
I caged it. And I remember going to that first day of school, I would not let go of my dad's hand. He had to walk, he had to walk me. I was 5th grade. Imagine this. I was like a kindergartner. It was 5th grade, and I made my dad walk me to my homeroom. I was so scared to be there. I was so scared that I wasn't going to find a friend. And I was scared to make another friend. And I didn't know that. I was scared I was in my little, 5th grade brain, I was like, I'm afraid I'm not going to make another friend. But in
mm,
my subconscious, it was I was afraid to make another friend.
mm,
So I caged myself off. I dove into horses more and more. Even within the horse world, the people who also chose to ride horses, I didn't really commune with well. We didn't see eye to eye on the same values. And so I was best friends with my mom and best friends with my horses. I didn't know how I didn't give of myself anymore.
mm,
Fast forward, we all make choices back then, and subconsciously they're there to protect us from pain, but we don't know the damage that they do.
mm, mhm,
And so, what was it? 30 years later, I find myself in a leadership training room, unraveling this tangled spaghetti, dismantling the cage and the walls that I had put around my heart so that even though I wanted a friend, I was so desperately afraid to have one that I didn't allow it to occur. And having dismantled that, my heart was broken wide open again.
mm,
I tell my kids this all the time. There's only two ways to show up with your heart. It's either bruised or caged. So, bruised or boxed. So, please continue to show up bruised. Boxed will never serve you or anyone else. And so I support them on their journey to make sure that they're always showing up bruised hearted, broken open hearted, and loving anyway. Because that really for me has been the shift in how I've manifested friendships, how I be in my friendships, and that includes friendships with my husband, friendships with my kids, friendships with my friends, and it all looks different, because we're all in different roles, but at the end of the day, we must come from a broken open heart in order to really connect. And so that I feel is paying like dividends and interest to me over and over again with the love that I receive. And it makes life, no matter how hard life gets, it makes life beautiful and a miracle and something that I'm grateful for, no matter how chaotic or tricky it is.
Hmm. I love that. Biggest takeaway from that is show up with a bruised heart, not a caged heart. Um, that was just gold for me. Thank you so much for everything you shared. It all resonated so deeply. Um, and I love that you said that you were afraid that you wouldn't make a friend, but what was really at the core of that was that you were afraid that you were going to make a friend, and that landed so powerfully. How many times do we close ourselves off in that subconscious fear, and then the very story that we're telling the world is, oh, woe is me, I can't make friends. There must be something wrong with me. I must be broken, right? So
Not
it's like catch
broken, just
22.
caged. We're not broken, we're just caged.
I know. I love that. And you mentioned earlier the importance of the community in bridging that shift for you, and where you're able to release and also be held high in your greatest good. And your work with families is super intimate and deeply personal. What have those families taught you about resilience, connection, and belonging? And how have you witnessed their struggles and victories changed the leader that you are?
Yeah. So I am my first profession, I'm a doctor of physical therapy in pediatrics. And so the patient population that I work with, the families and clients that I work with, have children who have neurodivergence, special needs, different diagnoses, whether they be cerebral palsy or autism or genetic syndromes. And so I take my role so just with such reverence because as a medical practitioner in this space, as the therapist, as the PT, I'm the one doing the do. Everybody else diagnoses, everybody else says go do this, refer out to that. Like I'm the one they refer to. So I'm in the trenches and I love it. And what I see parents going through is heartbreaking over and over and over again. The vision that they had for their children isn't going to be that. And what it takes to hold them while working with their child and them moving forward and redesigning what success looks like and redesigning what connection looks like. What I have witnessed with these families over the time is their ability to let go of what it should look like and be present with what is and grateful for what is and celebrate all the little moments that occur. And what's so beautiful about working with children with special needs is they don't know any different. They were born like this. So this is just who they are. And they show up authentically in who they are. And they don't know. I just worked with a child this morning who has a hemiplegia. So he uses the right side of his body. And we're working on him to use the left side of his body. But in reality, he doesn't get it because to him, it's the right side.
Hmm.
He doesn't know that he's supposed to use the left side. The left side is so hard. He's like, why? So he gets upset with me,
Mhm.
right? Because he's like, why are you making me do this hard thing? And and just reminding parents that there are humans out there that can be in team with you that will take on a different role than you. So my role is to get this child to their edge every time where we're connecting and communicating with one another, but they're almost yelling at me, but not quite. right? Definitely not crying, but like right at that edge of like, oh, this is really hard. And I don't want to, and then parents see, well, how do I do that at home? And I say, don't do this at home. Don't do this at home. My job, if we think about reading levels in school, if my child is at a level, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G in the classroom, at their edge, really pushing the limit. And that's what the teacher's job is to do. What they're supposed to do at home is be 2 or 3 levels back and setting foundations. So they're both at home, they read at level D. At school, they're reading at level G. You're building foundations at home. And so really the work of a parent is very different than the work of a therapist. And I make sure that they understand that and at the same time give them the the tools and the knowledge so that they can feel confident in who they're being and who they're supporting their child to be. And at the end of the day, what I learn is just the amount of resilience that these parents have, the amount of resilience that these kids have, the amount of joy that they have in one another and who they are. When you can truly meet someone where they are and not hold them to an expectation that you thought was a dream of yours. Like, because a lot of our hopes and dreams for our kids are absolutely expectations and agendas. And we're going to do whatever it takes to get them to that, level. And you have potential, but you're not there yet. And and so through this work, I support the child to come up and the parent to, and it's not about up or down, it's about meeting each other and
Mm.
supporting each other and being in partnership with one another and really learning how to interact with one another so that you can walk arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder together. And I tell parents all the time who have kids without special needs, like just on the normal, typical developmental trajectory, we all have challenges. If I could just bottle up this magic sauce that these parents who with kids with special needs end up learning and give it to them, there's a part of me that would love to give it to you. And then I say, but actually, I don't want to give it to you because the whole point is the reason this special sauce is so special is because they walked the walk. They walked the walk of the internal work. They walked the walk of, dropping expectations and really choosing to up level their skills. And when you have a child with special needs, you don't have another choice. Like it's really forced upon you to do that. When you have a child who is working well in the world or well enough, it's easier to get by with the things that we have always said and done and the things that we have always heard from our parents. The whether they work or they don't work, we end up sounding like our parents a lot. And so the interruption of patterns that don't work and the work that it takes to shift it is hard work, but so worth it. And we all are capable of it when we are committed to it. And when we see the value of doing that and the cost of not doing it. Both,
Mm.
both things are true. And having worked with families where there was no back door, they didn't have another way. When you have a child with autism who just communicates the way they communicate and they're not going to change the way they communicate, like you got to meet them where they are
Mm-hmm.
if you want to have any sort of dialogue with them. Like there's no option. We've got to look at that with our other kids too. Like there's no option but to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I support parents and really it's deep and personal and intimate work because not only are you looking at the dreams of dreams, but you're also looking at how you're getting there and realizing that, oh my gosh, some of the ways that I've chosen to show up to get to where I want to be really are not getting me there. And I keep trying harder, doing the same thing over and over and over again, thinking that more is better. And it's like, no, that's the definition of insanity. Like,
Insane. Yeah, I
like,
was gonna say
like
that means you're insane, lady.
uh, yeah, doing the same thing over and over, expecting something different, And then there's the challenge of development. So what worked? You're like, yes, this works, and you work it for
And
2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, that doesn't work anymore.
yes, yes, that is so true.
So
Oh my
it's a
gosh.
never-ending growth opportunity when we're looking at and being with our kids because they're giving us feedback all the
All
time.
the time. Yes, they're very good at
Yes, they are.
that.
with no
They're like
filter often.
they're born experts. It's like, teach me. Oh, great one. I love everything. It was so powerful how you talked about the challenges of being a parent if you do have a child with special needs. And then I loved how you also presenced what I heard was we're able to, we stay in our patterns and our mediocrity, or we stay small when we have a seemingly well child in our hands. And that I feel resonated so deeply with me because I feel that there might be a lot of us who resonate with that.
Yeah.
So thank you for presencing the importance of meeting people where they are. I think that is key, that is gold. And I think you went up a step further and then you also added the have no having expectations, that I think is a premeditated resentment. So
Yes. Expectations are nothing more but a premeditated resentment. We have a mutual mentor who taught us this.
yes. So I just love where you took all of this. And um, for the women out there listening, the final invitation for them, for the parents and the couples listening who may feel disconnected, overwhelmed, and still unsure how to keep leading with love, especially in the middle of life's challenges. What is your heartfelt invitation or reminder to help them come home to themselves?
We are born pure and innocent and light and love. I believe that to the core of my being. And I can tell
I haven't. Hang on, folks.
everyone in front of me is that baby. Everyone in front of me is that authentic child just working to be seen and heard and validated and mattering. Everyone matters, even and especially the people that you don't agree with. And we must be willing to find that commonality with them because it's all there. We are all connected, whether you want to be or not. You can think of a person right now who just like gets you at your core, and you get to find a way to love them.
Mm,
And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in your space, but you've got to see the humanity in all of us and be willing to ask the questions of what is driving this person to believe this? What is driving this person to behave this way? How is it that we got here, and how can I contribute to a bigger, more expansive, more loving space? And so I'm at a crossroads with some of my own family members right now.
mm,
And I think many of us are right now. I mean, especially in the United States. It's not just the country that's that's divided right now. Families are divided. Friends are being divided. And when we can just remember our innocence and that we are love,
mm.
it grounds me back into my central nervous system in trusting that love wins, in trusting that I am on this planet for but just a brief moment. How can I make a difference here? And so it's hard sometimes to let go of needing to be right. I mean, it sounds, when I say it, it's like, oh yeah, just simply do this. Like, no, it takes work.
It
It's simple, not easy.
It's our
And
ego.
I gotta breathe. And it's like, who is answering for me right now? Is it my ego or is it my heart?
Mhm.
And can I have a super highway between my thinking brain and my heart so that I'm
Mhm.
using the best parts of me to move forward? It's not just heart, it's not just brain, it's both connected. And
Yes.
I think that there are these dichotomies that we get caught up in when really, yes, there are, but we get to hold both at the same time. It's not either or, it's both and. How can I be joyful and heartbroken at the same time?
Mm.
And it feels like like logically that's not possible. And it is. It is. Because for me, joy is not happy. Like happy is a state that comes and goes. It's like a feeling, it's an emotion that comes, but joy is deep. Joy is a reverence for life and the miracle of it and the for me, I have but one life to live and I matter and how can I make a difference? And I've been given this opportunity by my creator, so let's go do it through all the different emotions.
Oh, you just humanize this whole experience in that, it's a both and it's not in order to live in joy, I have to not be hurt. So thank you for that beautiful invitation of remembrance that it gets to be both, and it's through living both that we are our whole being, our whole self. So
Yes, and
gorgeous.
yes, and going back to, of course you're hurt. You have a bruised heart.
Yay.
Of course you're hurt. You have a bruised heart, and our heart gets to feel. I mean, they call it heartbroken for a reason. I mean, how many of you have actually felt the broken heart? I, I have felt it.
It
Like it
hurts.
is a thing.
Yeah. It is really a thing.
It is a thing. And so like, and then you think about it, like, if my heart can give off this magnetic energy of love and it's now broken open, like, wow, how much bigger can that energy reach? How much more can that reach?
Oh,
Because now
they know now it's far. It's much
it's
farther than your, yeah,
it's so far.
so
It's so
far.
far. I mean, which goes back to like the horses. So horses have the biggest heart and they
Mm.
radiate love and they can there's so many horse healing things out there right now and
Oh
it's
yeah.
so beautiful because it is so real. There's nothing. I mean, I remember back to the days when I was a kid and couldn't get along with humans and I would go in my horse's stall and they'd be lying down and I would just lie down with my horse and it was just pure love.
That's
And
beautiful.
it's possible for us too, but horses don't have ego. Horses don't have, you know, I need to be
People
right.
pleasers in
They
in the
don't have
making.
people pleasers and they don't have, sometimes they have rebels.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are rebellious, but really they're just giving you feedback. So, and they've been
Yeah.
through traumas too.
Yeah.
And but they will never lie to you. And so if we can be around beings that don't lie and are truth, we can be that too. And it is an invitation
But
to,
being lovingly and asking for permission is what I'm hearing too, to remember.
yeah,
Yes. Oh my goodness. I feel that this call it came to a quick end already, but I think the conversation gets to continue for everybody out there. How can you be a stand for authentic connection and being a loving interruption for the people, for yourself, first of all, and then for the people in your life.
yeah.
So thank you for that. And Wendy, for those of us who want to and feel called to go deeper with you and experience your work firsthand, where can our listeners find you or connect with any offerings that you have?
Right now, probably easiest on Instagram. So Wendy W. McKenna. And we'll have that down in the show notes. And really what I'm up to right now is I'm launching Moms Mastering Middle School and really serving my community here locally in our area as well as virtually all over for our kiddos, sixth grade through ninth grade and what they're going through with you know, the transition from elementary to high school, the beginning of adolescence and puberty, their desire to have more independence when they don't necessarily have the skills yet, and how to keep connections going when it feels like things like social media and technology and screens and peers have more influence. It's not true. They do have influence, but you still have the most. So how do you get to show up so that you continue to have open dialogues and uh, connection, so that when challenges get bigger and bigger, you're the safe person that they come to. Uh,
Hmm.
and then for those who don't have middle schoolers, and I've heard back from some of you too. They're like, I don't have a middle schooler, or my child's older. I'm in the process, but I'm probably going to launch Moms Mastering Momming, and it'll be for any age and stage. So, because really, no matter what age our kids are, we can learn from one another and be with one another. And even when we're not in the same moment, thinking about it Montessori style, where you mix ages and stages together so you can learn from one another and support one another. That's the vision for Moms Mastering Momming, is that it's more of a Montessori. Doesn't matter what age or stage your child is at. This is a space for you to create connections and friendships and a tribe, so that you can be your true authentic self
Hmm.
and be held high even when you are behaving at your lowest.
Hmm. Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Moms Mastering Mommy is epic. And because truthfully, it is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I think that the skills that you offer to give others and tools are very important for how you show up in the world in anything that you do. So I think it's beautiful work that you are doing out there. And I'm so grateful that I was in a room with you as a mentor, because it really was a catalyst for a lot of the breakthroughs that I've gone through. So it's super important, everybody, to be reminded to find your tribe, find those people who love you enough and see you on the days that you are not yourself, not being your light self.
Yes.
So, and as we close this beautiful conversation with Wendi McKenna, we are reminded that our inner child already knows what brings passion and love for life. The journey is about really learning to listen deeply with our whole being and to accept feedback as a mirror that helps us grow, evolve, and transform. Wendy reminded us to laugh at ourselves, really, to stay humble, and to always look at the bigger picture. Because when you see the full spectrum of color, you begin to see the whole truth of who you are and what's possible. Breaking free from that hamster wheel of the old negative patterns takes courage. And it means getting out into nature, learning new skills and setting boundaries, and definitely showing up with the love and consistency. It means finding a community that will hold space for you at your lowest and celebrate you at your highest. Those who can hold your bucket when you need to let it out and receive your friendship without expectation in return. Her invitation is clear. Don't cage yourself off from the world. You are safe and you are resilient. Trust that. Be willing to walk into every room with a bruised but open heart. Let go of what it should look like and celebrate the beauty in what already is. True leadership begins with walking the walk of your own internal work, and it asks you to meet people where they are without expectation and to keep choosing to level up your skills. Yes, the interruption of pattern is hard work, but it's worth it. The cost of not doing the work is far too high because at the deepest level, we are all born pure, innocent, light, and we are love. If this conversation sparks something within you, if your heart app cracked open just a little more today, if you felt seen, heard, and simply not alone, I ask you, sisters, please share this and subscribe to our channel. Because when you do, this content can reach more women who need that reminder that she's not alone and that her voice matters and that healing is possible. And remember, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Until next time, my sisters, keep shining, keep rising, and keep coming home because you matter and you are enough exactly as you are. I am your host, Margarita Rose, here today with Dr. Wendi McKenna on the Coming Home to You Sparkcast. Until next week, same time, same Spark channel. We'll see you then.
Bye.